The following is a fan-based parody. The rights to the Poirot TV show belong to ITV, and the rights to the Poirot novels belong to the Agatha Christie estate. Please support the official release. Welcome back to another episode of True Crime Fiction. What we do here is take crime fiction stories and turn them into a true crime narrative. That way, you get to enjoy all the thrill and intrigue of a true crime story, without all of the gory details. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to get more captivating content, and share the video so that more people can join in. With that out of the way, enjoy the show. Our story begins out at sea, with the sun shining, a clear sky, and nothing to distract from the beautiful scenery about. It is a wonderful day for Captain Hastings and friends who are practicing clay pigeon shooting on the outside of the upper deck.
The whole art of clay pigeon shooting lies in the timing. The trick is, when I say pull... No! Sorry. My fault, should have warned you there.
Weren't you ready?
No, it's all right.
You see, they go up jolly quickly, don't they? Do you want to go? No, I think I'll learn the shooting bit first.
Can you reload that, Pamela?
Oh, I don't know. They go in here, don't they?
Shall I, miss?
I'm perfectly capable, thank you very much.
Well, we'll leave the reloading for a minute.
These four are not the only people aboard the vessel bound for the port of Alexandria. There's General Forbes, trying to get whatever exercise he can, Miss Henderson on holiday, Mr. Russell, a retired farmer, and of course, Hercule Poirot. We find him just coming out of his cabin wearing a lovely three-piece suit. He says hello to the captain of the ship. He also takes the time to listen to Miss Emily Morgan singing and Miss Nellie Morgan playing the piano, and compliments them on their wonderful skill, and even takes the time to have a lovely little chat with their niece Mary. He's most impressed with how smooth the ship is running. Everything is running like a well-oiled machine with nary a hiccup, and the whole journey has been smooth sailing. Both of the Morgan sisters thank Captain Hastings for the wonderful ride. He was an army captain after all, and that life never quite left him behind. Poirot also takes his time to praise his fellow companion, and moves to the upper deck for some relaxation. We now move to the perspective of Evelyn Clapperton, who is singing in her cabin. She goes on for quite some time and calls out to her husband, Colonel John Clapperton, but no answer. She calls out again and still no answer. A third time yields the same result. She gets quite annoyed at this, exits her cabin in the hopes of finding her husband. She soon meets Hercule Poirot and warmly greets the man and strikes up a conversation. Well, I say conversation, but it's really just her talking about herself and Poirot trying to get a few words in but failing to do so. She is a very arrogant woman with very high opinion, as evidenced by her talking about her experiences during World War I. She owned a hospital which provided a lot of services to a lot of British soldiers, and as a result, she made quite a name for herself. Although she undoubtedly did a lot of work during this time, he is dismissive of the work of everyone else under her. In her view, the nurses, doctors, and hospital aides might have well been useless. She is firmly under the impression that it was due to her and her alone that the hospital was able to function at all. She brings out a cigarette, which Poirot tries to light, but some action of his repulses Mrs. Clapperton, and she moves away to try and find her husband. Poirot is not offended by this action. Rather, he is intrigued as to what he could have done to offend the lady in question. He keeps his eye on her as her husband, having a friendly chat with Melissa and Kitty. Perhaps too friendly, as she drags him away from the whole conversation. While Poirot looks on the whole situation with interest, General Forbes walks up behind him and quite bluntly says that he would like to take a hatchet to her. She apparently reminds him of an old flame who is now on her third husband. Forbes makes his way to his cabin where he meets Mrs. Clapperton. He tries his best to have a conversation with her, but it falls flat on her repellent personality. She goes so far as to suggest the general is trying to flirt with her, even though he has given no indication whatsoever. This pleasant conversation is interrupted by one of the cabin men, Mr. Higgins, who saw the whole thing. She bluntly asks him what he is doing, and he stumbles a response that he was merely cleaning up the dishes. Mrs. Clapperton thinks she can boss him around and demands that he carry on with the work that she herself stopped him from doing. Time goes by and we find ourselves in the evening. The sky is not yet pitch black, but you can see the sun going down, painting a beautiful sunset. Inside the Emily is singing love ballad and some soldier songs, while Nellie is playing the piano to perfection. Everyone is loving the performance and cheering the duo on. Well, everyone apart from Mrs. Clapperton. She hates the performance and makes her displeasure known to all in the cabin, though this hatred goes beyond mere displeasure and veers into personal attack. Everyone becomes more than a little uncomfortable in the little remark.
The trouble with a cruise like this is you're forced to suffer amateur entertainment night after night.
Oh, we rather enjoyed it, didn't we, Molly? What did you think, Colonel Clapperton?
John would have been quite happy to sit and listen to that dreadful woman for hours. He has no taste at all as far as anything artistic goes.
It's true. Mrs. Tolliver's artistic.
That must be a great solace to you.
We're really looking forward to seeing the museum in Alexandria tomorrow.
John and I won't be going ashore. We never bother with antiquities. One must live in the present, don't you find? My house has nothing in it older than 3 years.
I'll have to be selling my car next year then, darling.
My car, I think, John.
Certainly, my dear. Your car.
If there's one thing you can say about dear Evelyn, is that you know where you stand with her. She will make no attempt to deceive you, which is a lot more than can be said for a lot of people. Hastings is out on the top of the deck, trying not to listen to the whole performance. He appreciates the singing and the piano, but he specifically requested that no love ballads or soldiers' song be sung. The reason being that his love life is less than stellar at this point, and he wants to relax on the whole trip, and not be reminded of his life in the army. Even the actual captain of the ship is not so uptight about the whole journey. Hastings makes his own entertainment by practicing for some play pigeon shooting. To try and cut the tension in the room, Forbes suggests that they play a game of bridge. Everyone waits for a response from Mrs. Clapperton, and she agrees. But even in this, she shows some disappointment as she announces her husband will not be joining. This time, the decision is of his own volition and not something that his wife had decided for him. Mr. and Mrs. Tolliver, another couple on the boat, and Mrs. Clapperton graciously agrees. Pamela and Kitty find Mr. Clapperton and wanted to join them outside on the deck to gaze at the stars. At first his wife disagrees, sensing that the trio are getting too close for her liking, but the two women are insistent, and they carry on as if nothing ever happened. Miss Henderson sees the whole thing going on and decides that it is best not to get involved. She goes out onto the deck and finds Poirot admiring the night sky. They both talk about the beautiful moon, and the conversation moves on to Mr. and Mrs. Clapperton. Poirot is fascinated as to why the Colonel would marry such an overbearing woman. It seems more like a prison than a marriage. Miss Henderson chimes in that he never should have married her, and Poirot can't help but agree. At that moment, Hastings moves into the scene, and a rather funny conversation ensues.
Many odious women have devoted husbands, huh? It is an enigma of nature. Which is perhaps why the estimable Captain Hastings has not yet taken the plunge into matrimony.
Matrimony? You're not entered for the Clay Pigeon Championship yet, are you, Miss Henderson?
No, I don't think I really mean to.
Hastings, can't you talk of something else, for once?
No, I'd love to talk about the Clay Pigeon Championship, but tomorrow perhaps? I have some letters to finish that I want to post in Alexandria.
Good night, Mademoiselle Henderson.
Good night.
Good night, Miss Henderson.
Good night.
Oh, Hastings, Hastings.
What?
Whatever is the use of me introducing you to nice young ladies if all you do is talk about the shooting of the clay pigeons?
But they like it. You heard what Miss Henderson said. She'd love to talk about it tomorrow.
Oh, Hastings, Hastings, Hastings.
Our impromptu trio move to the lower decks where they find the subject of their conversation, Mr. Clapperton, performing some card tricks for Kitty and Pamela. It's the usual kind of "is this your card?" but the two women are delighted by his talents nonetheless. He spots our trio and invites them to join in on the whole games. Poirot shuffles the cards, and to his surprise, Mr. Clapperton is able to deal himself the perfect hand. This is why he did not join in on the game of bridge. It would be unfair and unfun. Poirot is impressed, and Hastings even suggests that the man could be quite the famous magician. The comment seems to set Mr. Clapperton off, and he retires to his cabin. Everyone at the table is quite surprised. Even Hercule Poirot is dumbfounded at what could have set the man off. The very next day, the boat docks into Alexandria Harbor, a vibrant and colorful port town, with the locals wearing all sorts of fashion, people making all sorts of food, and vendors selling all sorts of goods. Everyone is keen to start the morning. Kitty and Pamela are eager to go for a walk on the town with Mr. Clapperton, who is hesitant on account of his wife. He goes to make sure that he has permission from his wife. She has come down with an illness and can't be bothered with anything. She won't even open the door, but at least she lets her husband go out on the local town. Poirot looks on as he sees the scene unfolding. Meanwhile, some hawkers or local vendors try to come on board to sell the crew some lavish goods. They are very insistent, and Kitty and Pamela give in to their demands. One of these men, dressed in a dark green garb, makes their way on board, try and sell their goods. Mr. Higgins from before sees all this going on and has a little chat with the man, then shoos him off the ship. Hastings takes Poirot off the ship and is eager to avoid the normal tourist traps and really experience some local culture. Poirot readily agrees and puts his day in the hands of Hastings. They make their way through the town, eating all sorts of local food, visiting local sites and buying local goods. The proper kind of stuff, not the cheap rubbish passed off as fine art to unsuspecting tourists. Miss Henderson bumps into them and strikes up a conversation.
Monsieur Poirot, have you seen the Clappertons ashore this morning?
I believe Madame Clapperton was spending the day in that cabin.
Ah, and what about Colonel Clapperton?
Let me think. He came ashore? Yes, no, certainly he came ashore.
It's just that there was some talk last night of us all going ashore together. Monsieur Poirot,
Yes, mademoiselle.
was Colonel Clapperton alone when he came ashore?
Was he alone? Let me think. Maybe someone was with him.
Miss Mooney and Miss Cregan, perhaps.
Yes, the two little girls. Yes.
They're not children, Monsieur Poirot.
Oh, no?
Nor am I.
As they move throughout the town, they bump into the Tollivers. They were out eating the local food along with General Forbes, but he had to return to the ship on account of some local food. Given his excellent experience in this regard, he invites the couple to lunch. At first they hesitant on account for Forbes' experience, but eventually they agree, and Hastings goes back to the boat to sort out the clay pigeon shooting. Well, he tries to, but the captain says there will be no such thing while they are docked in the harbour. Hastings tries to protest, but the captain tells him that the harbour master and the local authorities will be very angry, and they will be forced to depart, and so he gives up on the matter. The skies start to darken, and everyone makes their way back to the ship. Miss Henderson is already there, and she sees a somewhat worrying sight. Mr. Clapperton have a very friendly chat with Pamela. Poirot and the Tollivers are right behind, and so is Kitty. He tries to call out to his wife, but no answer. He calls out a second time, but no result. He calls out a third time, but still no answer. Then he goes to the steward of the ship so he can go inside. Hastings catches up with Poirot and rambles on about the clay pigeon shooting. He could not be less interested in anything Hastings has to say, and wishes there could be anything else to talk about, and he does get his wish, just not in the way he wanted. The steward unlocks the door to the cabin, and Mr. Clapperton finds his wife has been murdered by a knife to the throat. She is dead. Poirot wastes no time in solving the case and gets to questioning Mr. Clapperton.
Is anything missing as far as you can tell, Colonel Clapperton?
My wife always kept some cash in the second drawer of the dressing table. It seems to have gone.
How much was that?
Between 20 and 30 pounds.
Anything else?
Her jewels. There weren't very many. Most of them were in the captain's safe.
Would you say that your wife had any enemies?
Certainly not.
Colonel Clapperton, you have been most helpful. Thank you very much.
May I offer you my condolences? If there's anything we can do, Colonel.
Thank you, Captain, but there's nothing. Nothing can bring Adeline back again.
He then moves on to General Forbes, who is the only other person on the ship with Mrs. Clapperton. He admits that he has known her for a very long time, and was even in love with her at one point, although that time has passed. That's why he came back to the ship early. He was not ill on account of some local food. He had not seen her in over 17 years since the war, and he wanted to catch up with her. He said that she was not always the poisonous viper that she is now, and he hoped they could rekindle some sort of relationship, even if it was completely platonic. With nothing more to go in, Poirot makes his way to the captain's cabin. The man is eager to know who the killer is, but Poirot warns that he must not rush the little grey cells in his head and drive them to haste. Just then, one of the cabin crew arrives on the scene with his makeshift autopsy report. Mrs. Evelyn Clapperton had died of a stab wound to the upper thorax. Now that is not much news, as even a blind man would be able to tell. He is able to tell us that an amber necklace that belonged to Kitty and a white necklace that belonged to Pamela were found in the room. The final piece of information is that Mrs. Clapperton had died around 10 o'clock in the morning, give or take 2 hours. Even with that large of a margin of error, this is still good news. The captain still tries to push Poirot to try and solve the case as quick as possible, as he does not want to complicate matters by involving the local authorities. He insists that he is doing all he can and bids the captain farewell. He then goes up to the room of Pamela and Kitty, but there is a problem. Kitty is wrapped up in her blanket and weeping uncontrollably. When Poirot asks why, Pamela says that Kitty blames herself and Pamela for saying some very unsavory things about Mrs. Clapperton. Poirot reassures her that none of this is her fault.
She blames herself, you see. Well, and me.
But how can she blame herself?
Well, we did say some pretty dreadful things about her.
My dear Mademoiselle Cregan, if everyone on board who had said unpleasant things about Madame Clapperton were to make as much noise as your friend, this vessel would become a danger to shipping.
There! You hear that, little girl?
Oh.
Pamela then asks what he came to the room for. Poirot responds by asking them where Mr. Clapperton was during the day, and was he with them during that time. Pamela takes a few seconds to respond, but is able to answer a very sure yes. He was with them the whole day. They departed the ship at around 9:30 am and came back to the boat at around 6 p.m. There was a small window of a few minutes at lunch where he went to the toilet, but nothing long enough to suggest that he could have been the one to commit the murder. With all the information he has, Poirot goes back to his room so that he can dwell on the detail. Hastings is still up at night and sees a peculiar sight. Mr. Higgins in going off the boat into a dark alleyway. There could be a perfectly good reason for all of this, but with the recent murder he decided to follow the man. Higgins keeps on looking back to see if he is being followed with only confirmed suspicions, though he is not the only one with wary eyes. As he follows the man, a bunch of eyes start to follow Hastings. He feels a bit uneasy but forges ahead. Eventually, Higgins arrives at some seedy bar with all types of rough people, and among them is the vendor that was at the ship earlier during the day. Higgins goes to hand the man a crown that belonged to Mrs. Clapperton, but Hastings dashes in to restrain him. At that moment, a number of the bar patrons draw out their swords and guns, and some of them physically restrain Hastings. The situation is tense for quite a while until the authorities are able to intervene, and Higgins is arrested. Early next morning, Poirot and Hastings both make their way to the jail so they can interrogate the man. He admits that he did steal the jewelry, and that it did belong to the murder victim, but he denies the murder. He tries to justify it by saying the woman was dead and that no one was going to miss her. Poirot gets visibly angry at such a comment. Yes, Mrs. Clapperton may have been a thoroughly unpleasant woman, but that did not mean she deserved to die. Not to mention the toll this must be having on the Colonel. Our duo exits the jail cell, and they agree that, while he may be a loathsome man, Higgins did not kill Mrs. Clapperton. He is not the kind of man that is capable of murder. The captain wishes otherwise and just wants to be done with the whole sordid affair. Not that I can blame him. But Poirot again insists on a thorough investigation. Here are the facts of the situation. Other than the steward, Mrs. Clapperton had the only key to her room, and there was no other way out. There's only one possibility. That she opened the door to her would be killer. The obvious suspect would be Mr. Clapperton. He's the one on the boat most closest to her, and would have more reason than most to kill her. It was no secret how nasty of a woman she could be, and by killing her he would be free to mingle with Kitty and Pamela. But the man had a rock-solid alibi. He had left the ship at 9:30 am and only came back at 6 p.m. Perhaps it was one of the crew members. They could have opened the door, and she was a very wealthy woman. A robbery gone wrong was not out of the question. Then there is Forbes. He was on the ship because of Mrs. Clapperton, and even admitted to being in love with her at one point. He may still be in love with her, and a rejection might turn him over the edge. As Hastings' voices such a thought as this, Poirot has a sudden epiphany and rushes back to the ship and goes to Miss Morgan's cabin at once. He asks if he may talk with her niece Mary. Emily is taken aback at such a question, but he insists that it is of great importance, and she brings her niece forward. He then starts writing something on a piece of paper and gets to work. Now it is late in the evening, and almost everyone on the ship has come to the dining hall for a wonderful poetry recital by Miss Emily Morgan with some music courtesy of her sister Nellie. It's a piece by Rudyard Kipling. The recital starts off well enough, and everyone is enjoying the show. The captain then interrupts the show and wants to make an announcement. Emily ignores him and carries on with the show. He raises his voice, and that's when everyone stops. Something is a little bit off. He tries to get a response but struggles to do so. He knows that what's about to happen will cause a lot of commotion and wants to avoid a disaster if possible. That's why he wanted the case solved as soon as possible. Eventually, at that moment, Mr. Clapperton arrives in the dining hall and everyone waits with bated breath. Poirot arrives in his finest black suit and a small brown suitcase. He started his little show by saying, "You may think this is rather strange or odd, but please let me continue," and produced the brown suitcase. Nothing is remarkable about it, but he opened the case to reveal a doll, more specifically a talking doll. He then announces that the doll was witness to a murder. Everyone quietens down. He puts the doll back in the case and asks her if she would like to come out and play. The doll says no. Now everyone is shocked and stunned, but he continues.
Can you tell us anything about the death of Madame Clapperton?
What is it, John? Door's locked.
The door's locked.
Don't want to be disturbed by the stewards.
I don't want to be disturbed by the stewards.
You. Yes. Take him to my quarters.
Did I do it right, Mr. Poirot?
Mr. Clapperton is apprehended, put in jail, and Poirot reveals all. The night before the murder, when the Colonel was playing card tricks, that was all a ruse. He wanted people to think that he was a magician and not a ventriloquist. That's why he pretended to be upset when Hastings made the suggestion earlier on. When he was talking to his wife early in the morning, she was already dead and he was merely impersonating her the whole time. He then went about his day none the wiser. So why did he confess? There was no evidence to tie him to the crime. The whole demonstration was a charade to make him nervous. Mr. Clapperton knew that Poirot was a world-famous detective, and having the doll recall the fake conversation with his wife, it was a subtle hint from Poirot that he knew. That was enough to make him nervous, slip up and admit to killing his wife. There was nowhere else to go, and so he tried to escape, and in doing so, admit his guilt to everyone aboard. There are a few loose threads to tie up, though. First of all, the necklaces. They were simply a ruse to make everyone think that some local ruffian had tried to steal them and failed in his attempt. Second of all, why uses necklaces from Pamela and Kitty specifically? He them, since he was with them throughout the whole day and could easily steal them if need be. It had to be an item from someone else and not something that he himself purchased to avoid suspicion. And last but not least, why? Why go through all the trouble? This is perhaps the cruelest part of all. Not only was an innocent woman brutally killed, but 2 more innocent women will be racked with guilt for the rest of their lives. You see, Mr. Clapperton did this all so that he could be with Pamela and Kitty. He knew that his wife would not allow the stain of divorce to tarnish her, and there was only one way out. Remember the scene where Kitty was crying uncontrollably and blamed herself and Pamela for the murder? Well now, in some twisted way they were. And even though they had no hand in the murder whatsoever, this will haunt them till their dying days.
I am sorry, mademoiselle.
He didn't do it for me. It was those girls' youth. It made him feel his slavery. He wanted to be free before it was too late.
We all have such dreams.
When did you guess it was him?
His self-control was too perfect. No matter how galling was the conduct of his wife, it never seemed to touch him. That either meant that he was so used to it that it no longer stung, or else he knew his bondage would soon be over.
It was a cruel, dirty trick you played, Monsieur Poirot.
I do not approve of murder. Mademoiselle?
That's it for today, folks. Thank you for taking the time to listen to our newest episode. And remember to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon for future content, and share the video so everyone can join in on the fun. Again, thank you for your time, and I bid you farewell.